What is up, Felix here, and it's time for another sound design session because I finally managed to get my hands on the SYNTRX II. I really already am a big fan of the first version of this synth, so I'm excited to see what are some of the differences. And what I'm going to do is basically just create a patch from scratch and see where we end up. And I want to have a look at the melodic possibilities, but also the weirder FX abstract kind of sounds, which I always associate with the original EMS synthi, where people in the 70s would do these super weird, noisy FX sounds, using the joystick especially to create these abstract sounds in a very performative way. Anyways, I'm also going to be running it through the Analog Heat FX, I think mainly for some subtle saturation in this case. This is going to receive its own video very soon. And in case you're interested, we're actually going to do a giveaway of one of these very soon on our Voltage Labs Instagram page. So if you don't want to miss out on that, consider subscribing to Voltage Labs on Instagram. Anyways, let's go. Alright, so what are we looking at? I think the first big difference I noticed from the first version is that unfortunately these huge Cold War looking oscillator tuning knobs are gone, which I really like. Aesthetically, they look like they're super precise, but they are not, and these aren't either. But anyways, yeah, apart from that, the filter section is now down here instead of up here. Therefore we have this sample and hold section here. The effects possibilities also changed because first SYNTRX had a internal analog spring reverb, which I really enjoyed. Now instead of that we have a digital delay or a digital reverb. You can only use one at a time. I think they actually both sound super lovely, but I would have found the spring reverb more interesting than this digital reverb, because you can always get a better digital reverb in a plugin. Yeah, what else is there? Input and output management up here, noise generator, ring modulator, and here these output filters, which I think are normalized when they're at 12 o'clock, and then here you can lift up the highs and here you can take them down a bit, but in a more subtle way than the low pass filter here. And then yeah, the weird trapezoid named section here is basically just the envelope section. So pitch matrix is pretty much the same as before with some minor changes. On the left side you have all of the sources, so the outputs that you can patch, and then up here you have all of the inputs. On the left side these are all of the audio inputs, and these are all of the control inputs, like controlling the filter frequency, decay time, and all that kind of stuff. And of course also the oscillator frequencies. And the easiest possible patch, because actually right now there's already MIDI notes coming in, but we can't hear a thing because there's nothing patched up. And I think the simplest possible patch would just to be taking one of these waveforms and patching it directly into one of the outputs. Like for example, taking the sine wave here, patching it like this. And that's the most basic patch. And now we can control the oscillator section here, and that's it. But that's obviously kind of boring. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm first going to create like a basic traditional synthesizer patch. And then I'm going to try to make it a bit weirder afterwards. So I would first take, I think, oscillator 1 and 2 and the noise section and patch them into the envelope. So that would look like this. Yeah. Now I would use this envelope signal, patch it into the filter section, because I usually find it sounds better with this if you first go into the envelope then into the filter instead of the other way around, because I got some weird clicking sounds if I did it the other way around. So yeah, now all of the signals are going from the oscillator section into the envelope, from there into the filter. And now let me take the output from the filter signal up here into the effect section. And now the effect section output into the output one. And what you now notice is that it's 100% wet, because we don't have a dry wet control here anymore. But that can of course easily be fixed if we also take the output from the filter section itself, also put it in the same output. And now this knob and this knob together, they work like our dry wet control basically. And then also one thing that I like to do is obviously utilize the joystick. So here you can see this axis and here you can see this axis, and they can control various things. And for me the most obvious is to have this one control the cutoff, which would look like this. Unless it won't. Ah, yeah. Yeah, you can control the level of the manipulation here, and it also corresponds to whatever the setting is on here. I usually put it on 12 o'clock here, and this gives me a nice range. And then this axis I think I want to use to control the decay time of the envelope. So this way I can open it up with short notes, and this way with long notes. So now I have this super basic synthesizer patch. I can already have some fun with the shape control here and work on the timbre. And now to get some movement in there, obviously I'm going to take the third one as an LFO, as the triangle signal, and I'm going to map that to control the shape of all the oscillators. And now it's slowly sweeping through the shape. Giving me some movement here in the sound. And now paired with some delay. This is already a lot more interesting. Now I could also add some digital reverb on top of the delay in Ableton. Eventide black hole, and this obviously is going to make a huge difference. And now we already have a beautiful sound. I think I want to achieve some subtle detuning here between the oscillators. And here you can see how imprecise these actually are. They kind of jump in a digital kind of way between various steps of tuning. I think they don't feel super fluid and fine, so it's not so satisfying. Yep, this must suffice. And of course I forgot the most important thing, which is to also route the filter output and the effects output into the scope, or VU meter as I would call it. And now it's fully functional. Yeah, and now what I really like to do is to play around with the resonance and the decay and the cutoff at the same time. So this joystick opens up your left hand for something else, so you can always control at least 3 things at the same time independently. You could also map additional parameters to each of the axes, but then they would be tied to each other. So now instead of usually where you would have 2 hands to play with a filter and the resonance, now you can play with the filter and the resonance and the decay, just with 2 hands. Yeah, maybe let's first hear it in a musical context. I prepared this background loop here. And now, just with the joystick and the resonance, we already, especially if we crank up the noise a bit, we already get into this weird abstract effects kind of territory. But the beautiful thing is that there's still this underlying basis of melodic sound that is in tune with the actual music. But by adding in more noise and more resonance, we can turn it into this abstract kind of effect sound that is still somehow in tune, even though the weird resonance kind of sound is completely out of tune, but because it's moving and it isn't perceived as a dissonance. Now let's see how the delay sounds when you completely feedback the hell out of it. And now lastly, I could add some flavor from the analog heat by turning on the distortion and some chorus maybe and a bit of bit crushing. Alright, I guess that's it from my side for today. In case you have any questions, as usual, let me know in the comments and I'm trying to get back to you. And also don't forget the Analog Heat giveaway on the Voltage Labs Instagram page. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Peace out.